Hello, my name is Tabitha Tripp. I'm the owner of Tender Hearts Home Healthcare, and welcome to my show, Navigating the Way for Seniors. I belong to a group called the Senior Resource Association. It's a group of professionals that have come together to provide some answers to some of the rather tough questions that elders and their families are facing. Today, my guest is Rick Bouchard, who also is in the Senior Resource Association with me, and Rick is with Medical Alarms USA. Hi, Rick. How are you today?
Great.
Good. I'm so excited about having you on our show today because I think this is such a huge topic that is so important. And we're just going to jump right in there, and I really want you just to explain exactly what is an emergency medical system.
In the industry, this type of system is called a PERS system. That's an acronym for Personal Emergency Response System. One of the troubles in the marketplace, generally speaking, is that people think this is just for a medical emergency. And it is not. That's why they are called personal emergency response systems, which means that anyone, especially anyone living alone, can have immediate access to any kind of service they require, whether it be a medical response or a fire response. If someone smells something burning in the house and they're concerned about it, they can simply push their button, and in 30 seconds they're speaking to someone at the central station, and they can tell them that they need a fire response. And it may not be an emergency, and they can communicate that because these are two-way communication devices. It's like simply picking up the phone and speaking to someone about whatever your concern may be.
So that's a really good point right off the bat for people to be educated on. It's not just for somebody that is sick.
Not at all. It's for anyone living alone who's elderly. It's for anyone who has any kind of a handicap. Even if you're not living alone, a husband and wife, elderly husband and wife, or someone with a handicap of some sort, and they feel a need to have this kind of protection. Now, a lot of people have home security alarm systems. They're very expensive, or can be. The monitoring of them can be very expensive. And depending on what people put in their home, they could have everything from fire detection, carbon monoxide, intrusion, and on and on. And the touch pads that are used to turn the systems on and off are also equipped with medical call buttons, etc. Typically, however, those systems are not a two-way conversation. We're talking here about a very simple system that's very easily installed simply by plugging it into a power supply and connecting to the phone system. And whether it be even a need just to call if the person is somewhat immobile or just not feeling well and they want their next door neighbor to come over, or they want a relative to come over who lives nearby, they can simply push the button and tell the responding service what their needs are, and it'll be taken care of immediately.
And too many times, especially in the field of home care, do we see people get a system like this after the fact, after they've fallen, and they've fallen in the bathroom and they can't get up.
There is no doubt. I call that installing the system after the horse has left the barn.
And we see that a lot.
You do see it a lot. People are not well educated about these things. They see the commercials on television for these types of system. They read about them in magazines such as their AARP magazine if they're a subscribing member, or lots of the national publications. They'll see these things in the back of the magazine. Maybe they'll make a call and inquire, but usually not. Usually it is an emergency has happened, someone has fallen, and they're not discovered for hours, if not days afterward, which is...
Because they think, I don't need that yet.
Sure. It's exactly right. My mother's a primary example.
Right. Well, I am so interested in this, and I'm going to let you just jump right in and kind of explain.
Well, sure. There's a couple
units.
of different types of equipment here. This one is a very basic system. It's typically what people think about when they think of a medical alarm. It's a control unit that has a power supply plug-in and a phone cord connection, and it comes with a pendant, and this can be made a wrist style or this pendant style, and when the button is pushed, the unit reacts to that by calling into the subscribed central station, and then in about 30 seconds, someone is speaking through the speaker in the system to the client, asking them what their need is. There is a super sensitive microphone here. When this is properly positioned in a home, typically the client can hear it no matter where they are in the home, and the attendant at the central station through this microphone can hear that person no matter where they are in the home. And they have the ability on the monitoring end to adjust both the volume of the speaker and the sensitivity of the microphone.
So if that elder is not speaking clearly or speaking up in a loud voice, the person on the other end can turn that volume up so they can hear them.
If there's no communication happening, a quick call to the house phone will be made to see if the person can pick up the phone and communicate. And if not, the protocol is an emergency medical response immediately. A more comprehensive device does much more for a person than that. There is the ability to have a fall detector, such that if a client is wearing this and they fall and are unconscious for whatever the reason may be, this device will immediately contact through the unit, the central station. They know it's a fall detector. They're not typically always looking for a response when they try to communicate, and the medical response is happening immediately.
This really, you showed this at our meeting last month, and this really amazed me because there are so many times when the elder falls, hits their head, becomes unconscious, or just can't seem to get to that button to press that button.
Yeah, that's a real problem in the industry.
Most definitely. And this, when you said it turns a certain way, it knows that the elder has fallen.
This will react when it is 60 degrees from vertical. Now, typically, someone wearing it will forget they're wearing it and lay down to take a nap on the bed, on the sofa, or in their recliner. They'll just lean it back. So when it hits the 60-degree mark, this will give them a verbal reminder that their fall detector has tripped. Nothing has happened to them, and that's just a reminder to them, okay, I'll take it off and I'll stand it up in this cradle until I need to wear it again. But right now, I'm going to bed. And obviously not going to wear it.
So they should take it off when they go to bed, take a nap, and put it in the cradle.
Absolutely. As opposed to the, and whatever style, as opposed to the pendant or the wristband, which a person should wear at all times. These are fully waterproof.
So they can go in the shower.
They wear it in the shower, wear it in any wet situation. If it's hanging low, they're doing their dishes. It doesn't have to. It can get wet no matter what. But this should be worn at all times. Simply, even if a fall detector is also worn, so that when they take the fall detector off at appropriate times, like when they're going to bed or laying down to take a nap or whatever the case might be, they still have this on their person.
Okay.
A critical thing is when we get up to go use the bathroom in the middle of the night, as an example. A lot of people, even though they're suggested they wear this all the time, don't. They'll take it off and put it on the nightstand next to the bed.
We see that a lot.
And then they'll go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. They're in the wet environment of a bathroom, slippery floors, etc. And if they fall and need it, it isn't there. So other devices that are appropriate are this. You're familiar with something like this. They have the pull cords in nursing homes and hospitals, etc., etc. If you're down on the floor and if you're near one of these, well, this is the same thing. This is a permanently mounted device on a bathroom wall, kitchen wall, etc., and you simply push the button.
Okay.
And it's mounted near the floor.
Okay.
Okay, so that's another thing. And then for people who, and especially for families that are concerned about their elderly relatives or whatever, a lot of the times these systems are installed by a son or a daughter of, their mom or dad, or an elderly uncle is living alone. These systems, a sophisticated one like this, can monitor for carbon monoxide, can have motion detectors, door sensors, etc., so that we can monitor the house for fire through a smoke detector, carbon monoxide through a carbon monoxide detector.
And all of your carbon monoxide and your smoke detector all go through the unit?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Right. Everything has a wireless transmitter, like the pendant or the wrist. That's a wireless transmitter that communicates with the console. The console then dials in through the phone line, and consequently, we know, or I shouldn't say that, anyone who has a monitoring station and has the software to monitor a particular brand of console knows what the situation is based on the signal that's being sent. If it's a fire emergency, if it's a medical emergency, if it's a wandering situation. That's why I mentioned the door contact, because doors can be set up to send a signal if they're opened so that the caretaker, whether in the house or outside the house, immediately gets a phone call to let them know that that door has been opened, because perhaps that door shouldn't be used under normal circumstances because a person may have Alzheimer's, is a wandering type situation. So if that particular door is used, we know about it. The motion detector is not for intrusion. The motion detector is to monitor the activity in the house. In most situations, you would expect activity to be happening in the house, living room, kitchen, etc. And if there's no activity, then the system will let the central station know, and the caretaker or whatever person needs to know about this will be called, whether it be the next door neighbor or a relative or whatever the case might be.
So it doesn't have to be pressing a button and calling in.
No.
It's going to monitor
System can be
just by
set up to
motion.
Exactly. The bedroom, you would expect to see activity in the bedroom at nighttime. And if you're not seeing any activity, perhaps someone should be checking to find out why.
Okay. And I noticed that has a clip, so
Yes.
it clips on.
It
Now,
can clip
can
on
they
to
wear
a shirt
that?
pocket.
Can they wear that to bed at night?
No, because they're lying flat.
Okay.
And this will always trip once it's more than 60 degrees from vertical.
Okay.
This is a daytime thing when a person is up and about.
So that's why they should always still have the other pendant.
That's correct.
Because when they get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, if they
That's
fall,
exactly
they
right.
have that other pendant.
Exactly.
Okay. And what is this
Well, that's the motion
there?
detector.
Oh, that's the motion
This
detector.
is a motion detector that
Okay.
can be mounted in any room and programmed based on the time of the day that it should be seeing activity.
Okay. Can you put more than one of those in the house?
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
Like for different
you could put
rooms?
one in every room of the
Okay.
house.
All right.
And then program them individually so that they're sending a signal of no activity during specific times of the day when they should have seen activity in that part of the house. So as an example, when someone gets up in the morning, you would expect that there's going to be a visit to the bathroom, a visit to the kitchen area, in the main living area of the home, the living room, the den, whatever the case might be. So depending on the house's circumstances, you would install these based on that house's specific requirements.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you another question then. Well, we've talked about in the home. What about if mom likes to go out and work in her garden?
Yeah.
How far
Well,
will that pick it
that's a
up?
very good question. The transmitters, again, their range is specific to the manufacturer. So as an example, a good base unit usually will have a range of 600 feet from the console. And in your most typical circumstances, that means that anywhere within the yard of that particular property, that is going to detect them. We have units up to 1,800 feet. But clearly, if you get in the car and drive out of town, it's no of use to you. And usually that means if you're off at the grocery store or whatnot, it's of no use to you there. But whenever you are within your household or its yard, next door neighbor across the street, usually you're within
You
range
can be across
of
the
the
street
console. Oh, sure.
at a neighbor's house.
Sure.
So what was the physical distance that you gave us just now?
Somewhere between 600 feet and 1,800 feet,
1,800
depending
feet.
on the manufacturer of the equipment.
Okay. All right. Is that more money to have a unit like that? Do you know?
Not usually. Most companies have a range of costs. And number one, in most instances, you're not buying this equipment. In most instances, the equipment is leased to the client, and depending on how much equipment depends on the cost of that equipment. And then there are companies that will get one rate no matter what. There are other companies that will establish an annual billing or a quarterly billing or a monthly billing. Each one of those has different cost parameters. In terms of a system like this, usually things like smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors are actually purchased by the consumer because they have a limited lifespan. Like any smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector, they need to be replaced by life safety codes. Depending on the state you live in, there are different code requirements.
So they pick up the smoke detector, but you program it.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, for instance, if a consumer had a console with the pendant or the wrist and the fall detector, whatever the case might be, and then they decided down the road that they wanted additional services, like a smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector. And I should also add that depending, again, on that particular home circumstances, there are fire codes and life safety codes that would dictate how many smoke detectors and or carbon monoxide detectors need to be installed to meet applicable codes and exactly where they would be installed. So once that is established, if the client decides to go forth and do that, then X amount of detectors would be ordered and sold to the client. They actually buy them, and then at a certain point in time when they need to be replaced, again, it would be a purchase to replace it, but they're typically not leased like the console and the other life safety devices are leased.
So these are leased
Yes.
a monthly.
Yeah. So the
there a-
monthly lease is paying for two things. It's paying for the equipment, and it's paying for the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week monitoring of that equipment.
Okay. Is there one set price?
Not usually. Again, because there's so many variables. And again,
Plus, it depends on what unit you're going with, and
It depends on what
Right.
unit you're going with. It depends on the company you're going with. It depends on the payment plan. There are a variety of factors that determine cost.
okay. Insurance covers this?
Typically not.
No,
No.
not covered by insurance. Okay, but it's a good investment for sure.
Well, it's a great investment. Clients that are determined to be in a specific income range might have their equipment paid for by a state agency. As example, here in Massachusetts, under the Mass Health and Medicaid plans and through Elder Services, they can be fully paid for if the client is eligible.
It's a lot of interesting information about this unit.
Oh, no
I
doubt.
would just,
No doubt.
yeah.
The interesting thing to me, being from the security and fire alarm industry originally, is the new devices that incorporate all of these wireless devices for monitoring key things like fire and carbon monoxide in the home.
Right.
To me, if you're living alone or you're elderly and your spouse is still alive, whatever the case might be, the ability to have this kind of life safety equipment for a nominal cost in your home just makes all the sense in the world.
It does, because the key fact is elders want to stay in their home. They want to
Yes.
stay home,
Yes.
you know, and what a better way to do it than just to have something that's a safety check. And I love this. This is my favorite. When you showed this to me last month, I said, I can't wait to have you on the show to talk about this little unit that if the elder falls sideways and goes down and can't press that button,
Yep.
it's going
And
to go off.
especially if it's an unconscious situation.
Right, unconscious,
who
definitely.
is going to, over the years we've installed so many of the old systems, and again, we talked earlier about people order these things after they had a need for it.
Right.
Well, I can't tell you how many people have been into their homes to install this, and the reason they're putting it in is because they had a fall and broke a hip or other, and they just couldn't move, and they weren't found for hours. Well, if they had their button on them, they would have known. Now, I also had a client recently who fell, had one of these systems for many, many, many years, wore it religiously on her wrist, like a wristwatch, and basically forgot about it. When she fell, and she fell outside her home in wintertime, very cold conditions, she was not unconscious, but she laid there for hours until a neighbor driving by saw her and responded to her needs. where she could have simply pushed her button.
She forgot
The
she
beau-
had
and
it.
again, you get back to the fall detector.
Yeah.
If she had a fall detector, even though she wasn't unconscious, it doesn't know if you're conscious or unconscious. It just knows that you are down.
Right.
And in this case, she was outside, so she couldn't hear her console speaking to her if she had the fall detector. Well, that wouldn't matter anyway. The
And she just totally forgot she had
totally
that.
forgot she had it. And that's a problem with aging as well.
Sure.
Okay? But again, when you make everything automatic, no matter what, the controlling company is going to know that you are down on the ground. Doesn't know you're down on the ground, just knows that you're down. Just knows that the fall detector is not in the position that it normally would be expected to be in. So, when trying to communicate with the client through the console, if the client is outside and can't hear, and usually that's the case when you're outside, then the next thing that's going to happen is that the phone call is going to be made to either the house phone or that person's cell phone. So if they have their cell phone with them, they can communicate with us. But if not, we're going to be sending emergency services. And we're talking about all this happening within 60 seconds.
So, Rick, wrapping things up, is there any last-minute thoughts you want to let the viewers know?
I would say this to anyone, especially a senior living alone: be safe at home.
Be safe at home.
And, we talk about that to seniors all the time. There are people who will install grab bars where specifically needed, and there's all kinds of ways of staying safe at home. This is one key element to being safe at home. And to the families out there who worry about their loved ones, mom's living alone in California and I'm here in Massachusetts, whatever the case might be, these can be shipped out. They're easy to install. It's plug and play. People call us up for a little bit of instructions once in a while. Am I doing this right? Well, we'll walk them through the whole thing, making sure that the phone connection is correct, that their house phone ends up being plugged into the back of the console, giving the console priority to their telephone system.
So they're not left on their own. If they're having problem
Never.
plugging
Right.
in the unit, you will come out and help.
Right. And the other thing is we're going to have them test it. So no matter where they are in the country, once it's shipped to them, it's installed, we walk them through it on the phone, and then, okay, now let's test it to make sure that everything is communicating properly, that we're getting the proper signals at the central station, and everything is done. So there are innumerable companies servicing this need throughout the country. The equipment is manufactured. What are the questions? Is the equipment UL certified? Is the monitoring station UL certified? These are simple ways of finding out that this is top-notch equipment. And the other thing about it is, depending on where you are, you may want to always purchase from a company that's in your local geographic area because they have personnel to follow up immediately on any service requirement, any training aspects, whatever. Although we can train people over the phone, a lot of elderly especially want that person, as simple as it is, want that person on site to do it for them, show them, walk them through it, and then they're
They just
good to
like that
go.
happy face.
Yeah, hopefully it's a happy face. Absolutely, absolutely.
Rick, I really want to thank you for joining us.
My
Rick
pleasure.
from Medical Alarms USA. What a wonderful idea to put in your home to keep you safe. You don't have to have a medical problem to do it. And it's just like you said, the grab bars and protecting your home, protecting yourself. So
Be safe. Stay in your own home.
there you go. Be safe. Stay in your own home. Thank you so much, Rick.
You're welcome.
That was good.